Welcome to the Nightmare Lab. I've compiled a set of stories that are sure to creep into your dreams. Lock your doors, turn out the lights. Let the nightmare begin. I should have read the reviews. My girlfriend moved out 3 weeks ago. My cat Rook was really close to her, and now that she's gone, I can tell he's a bit lonely, especially when I'm at work. I came home a few times to my curtains ripped up, or all the toilet paper in shreds. The last straw is when I came home after working late to find that he had clawed a hole the size of a dinner plate into the side of the sofa. I decided I had to do something. I tried different toys, even catnip, but nothing worked. One night while browsing Amazon, I saw a pet camera. It's a tiny camera that records your pet on a live feed so you can monitor their behavior while you're away. It even has audio functions, so I could talk to him. Sounded silly, but hey, I love my furry dude, so I bought it. I got overnight shipping and installed it immediately. I decided to set it up in my bedroom, as that's where Rook dwelled the most. My first day at work, I think I checked the camera 30 times. When I spoke into the microphone, Rook seemed to be happier, and I noticed that there was no destruction around the house either. By day 4, I figured I'd solve the problem with Rook. That leads me to right now. About 30 minutes ago, I climbed into bed with Rook, ready to close my eyes, when my phone buzzed. A notification from the pet cam. I almost ignored it, sure that I'd triggered the thing, but I opened it anyways. What I saw made my grip tighten on the phone. Instead of a video of myself in bed, I saw a man, tall, gangly, with pale skin, large eyes. He was moving into my room with exaggerated steps, like a sneaking cartoon character. He got right up to the lens, so close I can almost smell his rotten breath, and he smiled. I immediately paused the video, terrified. I looked at the spot where the man should have been standing, but there was no one there. I went onto Amazon and found the pet cam. I read the reviews, hoping for some weird glitch. It had to be a joke, right? The first dozen reviews were pretty standard, but it was the last one that caused me to bolt upright. A customer complained that the camera was on a time delay, sometimes as much as 15 minutes. I went back to the video and pressed play with shaky fingers. I watched in horror as the man slithered under my bed, giving the camera a wink before disappearing into the darkness. Then I saw myself enter the room and climb into bed before the video ended. Now I'm sitting in bed, knowing he's under it. I could call the police, but I doubt I'd have time, so please, do yourself a favor and read the reviews. I'm no angel. It's 3:17 in the morning, and I leap out of the bunk as soon as the tone rings. To an outsider, they might just sound like a series of beeps, like a more elaborate form of Morse code, but to me, and to folks like me, it sounds as clear as if they were announced over a loudspeaker. 2 short beeps, 1 long, 2 fast. This is what it sounds like when the EMS Rig 6 is brought into service. My shoes are on my feet before the tone even stops, and I'm out of the door prepared in under half a minute. We don't need to inspect the rig to make sure that we're ready. We do it at the beginning and the end of every shift. Lord forbid you arrive on scene and find yourself without oxygen or airways. I'm in the passenger seat a full 15 seconds before my partner, Jonathan Torres, a man who always looks better than he is. You have to give the man credit. It's admirable how he can hide himself behind $100 sunglasses and hair gel. We're pulling out of the base as dispatch comes over the radio. It's a trauma case, and it sounds severe. A woman in her early 20s, signs of head trauma, likely altered mental status. This was a major league deal. Most people think EMTs ride around in an ambulance all day, like some sort of angel in a blue coat. I'm no angel, just a guy with a job. The fact is, most of what we do is just drive elderly people between hospitals and long-term care facilities. We're a taxi for the fucking geriatric, by and large. We're on scene long before ALS, and there's a black and white there to greet us. Tourists must know the guys, since they give each other a friendly nod and a quick informal greeting. The officer tells us that they were called to the scene for a bleeding, incoherent woman. They suspect drug use. I glance over, my hand tightening on the green bag in my palm. It weighs maybe 40 pounds, and it has everything in it that you could ever hope to need in case of an emergency, most of which goes unused for practically everything. We approach the woman, and I'm a little taken back. She's beautiful, even with the dried, caked blood holding her blonde hair to her forehead. I feel empathy, something as an EMT I'm usually completely desensitized to. She's younger than the reports, maybe 16, if that, and she's very apparently nude beneath the fire blanket the officer must have draped around her shoulders. She clings to it. For the briefest of moments, I'm jealous of that piece of flame-retardant wool. All she says is that he almost got her, and that she's terrified and needs to go. We try to assure her that she's safe, and we'll get her going in just a moment. A focused examination of her head reveals discoloration behind her ears, often common with sudden, swift blunt force trauma. Her eyes are banded like a superhero's domino mask, not unlike a raccoon. I'm a little amazed that she doesn't have brains leaking out of her skull at this point. It's a fucking miracle that she's not dead, much less walking and talking. ALS arrives shortly after and label her as an unstable patient due to her altered mental status, more than the bashed-in head admittedly, and they decide to transport her to St. Francis, the closest trauma center with any kind of cranial specialization. And just like that, the miracle woman, the beautiful, nubile girl with a mysterious past, is out of my life as soon as she stumbled in. Now, I'd like to tell you that I let sleeping dogs lie, but I just couldn't. This girl stayed in my brain, infecting me, affecting me. I lay down my head and I dream of her. I answer calls and I hope they're her. I let this go on for a week and a half until I can't keep up anymore. As I go to load a patient, I drop my end of the stretcher. Torres yells at me. I don't hear a thing. That night, I drive to St. Francis. It's 5:30 in the morning when I arrive, entering through the emergency admittance entrance. The code for the door is *911, as unimaginative as it is. I work my way past the nurses and the doctors I know well, citing a need to pick up a billing form I had forgotten. They all nod and give me a knowing smile. These things happen. Accidents happen. I found her room easily enough, somewhat drawn to it. She's not in the ICU anymore, just resting in a bed. She looks so bored, so tired of this hospital. I can relate. I tell her. Sometimes I wish I could just get away. I ask her if she wants to leave, and of course she does, but she's afraid her parents will be upset with her. I tell her they never have to know. She smiles. Today, I am a hero. I wheel her out in a stretcher and make sure to time it as soon as the morning change nurse is away from her station. Dahlia, as I learned her name, pretends to be asleep and motionless. She's so smart, too. Once we're in the elevator, we're in the clear. People just assume I'm transferring her. It's funny how easy you trust a man in a convincing uniform. Briefly, I'm terrified to think of what I could get away with if I had a fake badge. We're to my house before long, and Dahlia sleeps the entire way in the car. I understand. It gets so exhausting in the hospital. How is a person supposed to rest with all those people constantly shuffling in and out? All the pills that they give you for your own good? What a joke. I carry her across my doorstep like a bride. She's awake now, and she thinks it's adorable. She's practically screaming with happiness at this point, and I'm once again glad I live in such a remote area. It's a half-mile of forest and interstate between myself and the city itself, so the privacy is always abundant. Faintly, we can hear voices below us in the basement. I sigh softly, reminding myself to make sure I turn off the television before I leave the rec room. I carry her to the family room below, and the voices greet us much more urgently this time. I remind Dahlia not to be so forgetful as me, and that she should always remember to turn off the TV before leaving the house. I apologize for not setting a better impression. We walk down a long hallway, lined with doors on each side, until we come to the end with a more ornate door than the others. There's a small circular window in it, similar to a porthole, and you can see her beautiful room. There's a shelf with beautiful dolls for her and a wardrobe full of clothes. I tell her it's all for her, and that I'll never let anyone hurt her again. I lay her in her bed, and she rolls over, crying with happiness once more. It must feel good to be this loved. I leave her room, quietly locking it behind me so as I may not disturb her. She'll be safe here. As I walk back to the family room, the screaming finally comes to me from behind the doors. Faces of the other brides stare back at me, faces twisted with jealousy and envy. They know how much I love Dahlia, and they're ungrateful for all that I've given them. I shake my head slowly. They'll have to be punished for such impudence. A better man might be more understanding, but after all, I'm no angel. That concludes this week's session at the Nightmare Lab. If you enjoyed this episode, click the like button and comment below. If you have your own twisted tale that you'd like narrated on our channel, submit it through the form in the description. Become a part of our sinister collective by subscribing. Be here next week for another concoction to feed the nightmare.